Hey guys, it's Austin. In this video, I'm going to show you how to rebuild a Jetta 1.8T turbocharger. Now, I already got the turbo apart, but I'll show you the basics of how to remove this because it's not very easy to do this. Okay, so when you're taking the compressor housing off, you do have to press the compressor wheel out, but the way you want to do that is to have like a socket or something and press that out, and that's once you have all the bolts removed for the compressor housing on the back side, and once you have the exhaust housing removed. And the reason why is because the compressor plate is glued to this compressor housing. So once you remove those bolts, it'll rotate, but it'll rotate because the bearing housing's loose. But the compressor plate is mounted to the it lays on the bearing housing like that, and then it's glued to this compressor housing. So next thing that you need to know is that on the exhaust housing, you'll have these little bolts and stuff. And the way that people mess up is they'll try and loosen the bolts, but they won't, they'll strip out. But what you need to do is take a hammer and you hit these little tabs to loosen them. So once you take a hammer and hit them, it'll loosen the bolt. And it's a really simple trick. A lot of people just never really thought to do that, but that's worked for me every time, so I just do it that way. So let's go ahead and get on with the rebuild. Now for this turbo, it's not going to look the same as yours because I'm doing an upgrade on this. So we're going to a 42 by 56 millimeter compressor wheel. And this is the KO4 upgrade. And the turbine, we're going to a 44.4 by 59 blade turbine. And I'll link to all these parts in the description so you can check them out. And if you want to buy them, that's cool too. Here's our rebuild kit. Now, I highly recommend that you do buy this rebuild kit. And the reason why is because the factory one has a really weak thrust bearing. So even if you just turn up the boost, you can wear out the thrust bearing really fast. So our thrust bearing is an upgraded 3-oil port, full 360-degree bearing. And then I think that the collar and spacer is also a little bit larger too. But anyway, first start off, you want to mark the compressor wheel and the shaft location and the compressor nut location. I like to do that with the center punch, just tap it lightly. And then once you have that, this compressor nut's left-hand thread, so you're going to turn it right to loosen it. And you want to make sure you clean up everything good. Like I blasted this piece so that when I glue it back on, it will seal properly. I blasted the heat shield so that it doesn't have any issues with clearances. You want to blast the exhaust housing because if you have an issue with burn oil everywhere, it can rub the shaft really bad. So I'll go ahead and take you through the installation process of our kit so you know how to do this. So after you tear all this down, you can put the C-clip back in the back side of it, which you don't have to replace, but if you want to, yeah, you might as well do it, I guess. So you want to have like a pair of pliers like these that you can get in there with. And I usually take something to shove in the back side so I can control me putting this thing in here. Now you can install your stationary bearing. And notice that the top with the groove goes in, or stays at the top there. This bearing is not supposed to spin, so you don't have to oil on the outside of it, but you do have to make sure that you do install this properly. This piece retains the bearing so that it doesn't go anywhere. So you install this piece like this. This piece goes in there like that. And then you're going to take your C-clip and you just snap it in there. And that retains the bearing. The next thing that you're going to do is put the thrust collar down. So we're going to take this off the assembly. This assembly I had balanced. We do have a balancer here. I don't really like to use it. I usually let Ian balance everything, but everything that we do have here, we do balance it. The main thing that I like to do with this business is I like to do all the machine work and write CNC programs and stuff. So once you get that piece in there, take your thrust collar, and it has a beveled edge, and the bevel edge goes down. Next, you're going to take this piece and put the seal on it. And put some oil under it. And put your your thrust bearing down with the oil holes down. Then you're going to take your oil deflector. Oil deflector just sits in there like that. Your seal plate. You just have to massage this in, and it goes in just like that. And then sometimes I'll like poke it out a little bit so I can throw some oil behind it. And then spin it, make sure everything works right. And then your seal goes right around here. And then you could just throw that on there. So once you've gotten this far, you're going to put a heat shield on. And then install the rear seal on the shaft. Make sure you spin it. And you're going to reline up your compressor wheel to your shaft and your compressor nut. And before we do that, I'm going to throw some Loctite on here. Once you have those marked from the original turbo, when you go to tighten it back down, it will be within the proper torque spec as long as you line the marks back up. So once it starts to get tight, usually add a 4th turn. So after you have this assembled, now it's time to prepare to install it into the compressor housing and turbine housing. So one thing that you didn't see is that I actually had to change out this plate, the heat shield, because I had the wrong one. And for this, go ahead and set your exhaust housing just like this with the things bolted in there. So then you can slide the cartridge in, and then you loosen these up and then rotate them and tighten them down. But first, we're going to install the compressor housing. So what I do to do that is these originally are like glued together. So what you want to do is clean this whole surface with acetone, and it's really good to blast it if you can, because if you could blast it, then you could get a nice surface to where the new RTV gasket will seal to it really well. So you want to make sure you use the black, and the reason why is because the red will come off really quickly. The black does really well with boost pressure, and I've never had a problem out of it. So grab you some of this. And then, so you're going to glue this surface, and then you're going to stick it inside the housing, and then once you get it out, you'll have an imprint of where you need to fill it in with the RTV. And then after that, you're going to make sure that you put the RTV all over this. And when you have it on here and on here, it will stick perfectly. Otherwise, if you just have it on one surface or the other, sometimes it can't stick exactly perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Based on the pictures I found online, the oil feed should be about in line with the outlet flange. One last thing I want to mention is that this guy took the wastegate arm and welded it shut, which I wouldn't recommend doing that. Basically, that makes it run full boost, and so it'll run all the boost that it possibly can. It's really bad for it. That's why you need to use a boost controller if you want to increase the boost. But welding it like this, it will run the maximum amount of boost that this turbo can possibly push, and it's really unsafe. You can run the car so hot that you can burn a valve. You can also burn up the turbine wheel and stuff like that. But I just wanted to mention it. So I just finished the KO4 build for the Jetta 1.8T. I think this is the same upgrade for the GTI and the Volkswagen Bug 1.8T. If you want an upgrade like this, you can always contact us at turbolabamerica@gmail.com. And then also, if you need the rebuild kit for one of these, I'll link to that in the description box. And I'll just go ahead and show you what this looks like. I CNC machined the compressor housing, and we used a billet wheel that's 42 by 56 millimeter. And I blasted and painted the bearing housing, and then pressure washed it twice. And then I resurfaced the flange for the exhaust manifold. Then I blasted it a little bit on the inside here, and I machined that exhaust housing for the 9-blade. That's 44.4 by 50. So thanks for watching this video, and please subscribe if you want to learn more about how to rebuild these turbos and learn more about turbochargers in general.